Welcome to episode 2 of the Canadiens Coronary. I'm Nick Murdocco.
I'm Gary Whitaker.
You can hear us live every Saturday and Sunday morning on the Team 990 right here in Montreal, 6 to 9 a.m. Saturdays and Sundays. We're talking about the Montreal Canadiens. Now, the Montreal Canadiens are enough to give anybody a heart attack on any given night, but my friend here, as you can tell, could stand to lose a few pounds, hence the name Canadiens Coronary, because by the end of this show, one of us may not make it. We've got a great show packed for you today. We're going to be talking about Carey Price, how he's done in this 2-week span since we've last spoken to you. PK Subban, how's he doing under the thumb of Jacques Martin? We've got more questions on...
Well, Markov, Canadiens, Leafs, all rocking it here at our bar, 5817 Boulevard Saint-Laurent.
Stick around.
All right, Nick. So, yeah, we got to start with probably the question qui tue, like we like to say in French.
Or you do.
The main question, I think, that you can't start any Canadiens conversation without starting to talk about Carey Price. How do you think that he's been right now in the first 2 weeks of the season, and has his play been good enough to silence the critics? Or, Nick, are you still critical?
You done? I'm not critical. If anyone's been following us, I've never been critical of Carey Price. Has he had a bad stretch? Yes, he has. Now, let me ask you something. Either the fans were not able to get tickets to the Montreal Canadiens' recent home games, or they've been silenced or muted or
Which
something.
Fans?
Well, the Canadiens fans that booing.
Oh, the ones that
Carey
boo.
Price, the boo birds. Now, bottom line is, whatever the case may be, I think that already in the first 2 weeks that have passed by, whether you like Carey Price or not, you have to give the man his due. He's kept the Canadiens in every single one of their games, was still a factor in some of their losses, ended up being a star in at least one of those losses.
A positive factor, I think.
A positive factor.
Yes.
Well, because we are trying to say that Carey Price, things are looking good. A couple of things about Carey Price is you have to make sure that Carey Price gets the goal support that he needs in order to have these wins. A lot of people say Carey Price lets in one bad goal per game. Yes, but if your team is only scoring, you are one of them, and you are a lot of people. But a lot of people saying that Carey Price lets in one bad goal per game. The problem is his team has to score more than 2 goals per game in order to let that happen. You don't hear about Antti Niemi, Marc-Andre Fleury, and the list goes on and on, who let in a bad goal every once in a while, but their team scores 5-6 goals, and it makes up for it.
Well, exactly. You play for Pittsburgh, and you got Sidney Crosby playing in front of you and Evgeny Malkin. Yeah, you know, guys like Fleury are going to get some extra wins because they have the goal support. Price needs the goal support, and the Canadiens thus far this season, when he gets the goal support, they win. Why? Because the difference between this season over last season is Carey Price right now is making the big save. And not just the big save on the first shot, big save on the second, third, and even fourth shots at times when need be. So you know what? I think absolutely Carey Price has been a difference maker thus far in the season. It's early season, but he's been a difference maker nonetheless.
Carey Price, me likey. Keep it up. Now, I got a question for you. Another key player, yes, for the Montreal Canadiens, Andre Markov. I say key player, hasn't yet had the time to shine for Montreal. There's been rumors, there's been talk lately as recently as this past week. Tony Marinaro from the Team 990 broke or tweeted that he had it on good authority that Andre Markov was in contract negotiations with the Montreal Canadiens for an extension around 5 years. Montreal went nuts. Half the people saying it's not true, the other half saying I can't wait. What do you make of this whole situation here?
I think when you look at a guy of the caliber of Andre Markov, if you're the Montreal Canadiens organization, you absolutely have to have some kind of negotiations with him. I mean, if you look at last season and give you the example is Thomas Plekanec, right? Here's a guy that they've pegged as a central figure in the Canadiens' long-term plans. They had that discussion with him in the beginning of the season to say, okay, this is what we're looking at. We're looking at a few years. Obviously, it became 5 years. We're looking at a few million. It became around $30 million. So they had that discussion with them in the beginning of the season, and then it's like, okay, thanks. We'll get back to you.
Because we don't talk during the season.
Exactly, and I think this is probably the same thing that Tony Marinaro must have alluded to. That's my opinion anyways, is that they've set the precedent right now for Andre Markov, saying, yes, we want to sign you. Yes, here's the amount of years that we're looking at. This is about the dollar figures that we're looking for. And then we'll get back to you once we release some contracts, be it the Hammerlets and spot checks and whatnot. I think those were the type of conversations that were to be had. But there's nowhere in the history of the Canadiens that makes me think that they're actually going to have signed him in season to a new contract negotiation.
Here's my take on this.
Please.
Andrei Markov was rumored to be coming back to the Montreal Canadiens lineup in the mid part of October. That's come and gone. Next thing you know, it may be the 23rd. Next thing you know, I may go towards the end of October.
I smell you going on a conspiracy rant.
I am a conspiracy theorist.
Or
Tony Marinaro, it's very rare. Tony Marinaro goes on the air and tweets something to the effect as big as this without having some kind of knowledge. Now, it's been denied by Don Meehan. What else is he going to say? But my point here is that if you're in contract negotiations with a team, what's the worst thing you can do? Go out, get injured, and then you lose your bargaining power and your leverage. What I'm thinking is, coincidence? Andrei Markov is holding back on his comeback in play with the Montreal Canadiens. I'm saying it has to do with the contract talks, and I would almost say that when Andrei Markov laces him up for the Montreal Canadiens, it's going to coincide with a contract extension.
All right, Nick, my turn. We talked about one of the pivotal players of the Canadiens that have been playing. We talked about one that hasn't yet played. What about the Canadiens as a whole? They, so far this season, they're not the Maple Leafs, but they've been playing fairly well. What's your assessment of this team thus far?
There's all kinds of wrong with what you just said there. They are not the Leafs. Unfortunately, the Leafs are ahead of the Montreal Canadiens, and that's a lot of tongue. They are ahead of the Canadiens.
A lot more cheap.
In the standings. I'm wondering if at mid-season we're going to be comparing the Montreal Canadiens up to the Toronto Maple Leafs. That remains to be told. I'm still trying to figure out if Clark MacArthur is going to score 82 goals this season or not. Besides the point, this is Canadiens Coronary. Montreal Canadiens are a little bit above 500 as we speak. Yes, they could have won a couple of the games that they lost. Yes, they could have gotten a couple of points instead of one against Tampa Bay. But you know what? In the big scheme of things, they won some games perhaps they weren't expected to and lost a game that they perhaps couldn't be expected to. I'm thinking right now things are looking okay for the Montreal Canadiens. They need their power play to click. They're doing all right. They have not taken any losing streaks yet. It's one win, one loss, 2 wins, 1 loss. Looking good. Steady goes the course. And I think that as soon as we get the top 6 settled out, and we'll talk about that later, I think it's going to be just fine for the Montreal Canadiens. They're doing well as we speak.
They are who we thought they are. It's as simple as that. They're a team that will be battling for a playoff spot this entire season. They're, I think, around 6, 7, 8 place, depending on the wins and losses at this point. They are where we thought they are, and the fact of the matter is, they're doing it without the penalty kill. But you know what? When the power play, well, thank you. When the power play starts working, probably their 5-on-5 scoring, will start having problems. So, as far as I'm concerned, where you see them right now is where they're going to be this entire season, all the way into the playoffs, and I do mean into the playoffs.
There you go. All right, now I want to look at some players and the team with the influence that is Jacques Martin on this team. The first thing I want to get to is your boy, Mr. PK Subban. We saw last year when some young bucks from Hamilton came up. They played a full game, just came in, scored a couple of goals. We're talking Desharnais, Payet, White, and it looked great. The new line for the Montreal Canadiens. Second day in, Jacques Martin got his claws in them, and they started playing their defensive role. My question to you is, PK Subban, offensive powerhouse, but will the Jacques Martin effect harness him or make him flourish?
He's a thoroughbred.
He's a thoroughbred.
Thoroughbred.
He's tired?
A stallion. He's a black stallion as far as I'm concerned. And one thing about PK Subban is that I think, unlike any other player, probably in the history of Jacques Martin as a coach, general manager, anywhere else, he's actually given PK Subban a lot more of the reins than he has anybody else. You've seen even recently when the Canadiens were down in the third period, he'll actually say, okay, Pecan, be offensive, and not bench him because
Pecan. That's his new name.
Well, Pecan, Byrne can't.
Not from the doghouse.
Right, and Spacek can't, but for other reasons. So, age and whatnot. But hey, listen, at the end of the day, I think Jacques Martin is maybe trying something new. I don't care what it is. I don't care what the reasons are. I think right now Jacques Martin might be getting a little bit more, I don't know, less temperamental in his old age. I don't know what the situation is.
Less cantankerous.
Less cantankerous. He's allowing PK to be PK a lot more than I think the Jacques Martin of last season. So maybe someone spoke to him. I don't know. But who cares? I actually like what I'm seeing from Jacques Martin and the way that he's starting to manage these young players, and specifically PK Subban.
I think it's a fine line between trying to bridle all that power and to let him be exactly who he is. I think if you look at Michael Camilleri, you do not put Michael Camilleri in a penalty kill situation or in a shorthanded position, or if you have to win specific face-offs and that. You know what you have Michael Camilleri out on the ice for. Same thing should be said, exactly. Same thing should be said for PK Subban, while he is a defenseman, he is an offensive defenseman. You have to play to his strengths. Yes, he has to play within a certain system, but you have to make sure that you use him for what he is good for, and then put him with a defensive pairing of a stay-at-home defenseman, which Andrei Markov would almost be perfect. I think the Hammerlick and the experience that he's done with Dion Phaneuf, I think I like that as well. You can't put him with another rookie.
Yeah, PK Subban gets a penalty with 2 minutes left to go in the game that allows the other team to come back. You know what, Jacques Martin, that's your fault.
All right, what's next?
You know what?
Benoit Pouliot.
We'll take a look at continuing on the trend of Coach's Coroner, if you will, and how we think that Jacques Martin is treating his players. You look at how he's handling a guy like Benoit Pouliot, right?
His boy.
Well, to a certain extent, and I'm wondering also how the players react to him as well. You know, you've got guys that just can't seem to do anything right. You know, Ryan O'Burns that just will be in the doghouse no matter what. Lars Eller is kind of getting a shot, but you take a guy like Benoit Pouliot who, you know, coach says, you know, we're going to put you on the third line. Yes, boss. Okay, third line. I'll be effective third line, right? Sure you will. We're going to put you in the fourth line. Okay, yes, boss. I'll be effective, right? What do you want me to do, boss? And then he goes off and does what he got to do. Does what he has to do in the fourth line. I think Benoit Pouliot is almost playing to the teacher's pet, Nick. I don't know. I mean, is that what you're looking at?
You know, I have a different take of it. I mean, what is Benoit Pouliot going to say? It's just like PK Subban. Yes, I have no say wherever the coach wants to put me. I'm thinking more the coach is defending Benoit Pouliot in any scenario. When asked if Benoit Pouliot was not producing, he was quick. Jacques Martin was quick to say,
no.
Well, you know, I'd look less to what Benoit Pouliot's not doing, and maybe his two line mates need to spark something for him. And when it came to the doghouse, he never said there wasn't one for Ryan O'Byrne, but when it was doghouse and Benoit Pouliot, well, you guys like to say it's a doghouse, but I'm just sort of making sure that we take care of business with Benoit. I think right now you got to put Benoit Pouliot on that top six line, make it or break it, and then demote the man if he can't make it on that top six.
Yeah, you're out of your mind. He'll be in the AHL before midway through the season.
Well, that's called demoting him if he doesn't make it in the top six. All right, what about, talking about who's going in the top six, who's not going.
I don't think he's going to make it in the top six. I think he'll get out of the top six.
I think Jacques Martin loves the boy from de chez nous, and he's going to put him on there. Speaking of the top six,
Ontario, but go on.
Well, and Jacques Martin is too. So you can look that up. Boyd, Darche, Moen, Pyatt, Pouliot, they've all been on the top line with Gomez and Jonta.
You're going to give me a coronary right now.
It's on.
Because de chez nous actually means from Quebec, and he's from Ontario. But
but in their Quebec, in their Ontario, we got it.
Yes.
Bottom line is all those players have played on that line with Jonta and Gomez. Jacques Martin wants to absolutely roll four lines, and right now everyone's getting a shot on every line. Is this okay going into 6 to 10 games?
Well, my issue right now with what I think Jacques Martin is doing is you've seen the tremendous play from his third and fourth lines, and he's almost ruining that to try to get his first two lines going. Now, listen, I understand that if you look at a 60-minute game, you want to try to give favor to the lines and lines that will be playing 20, 25 minutes as opposed to 10 to 15. I understand that, but you know what? Take a little bit, take the approach that he has with PK Subban, the patience that he's maybe shown with PK Subban, and apply it to some of the guys he's giving an opportunity in the top lines. Let them try to prove themselves and get that chemistry going before he breaks up the fantastic trios that are happening on the third and fourth lines. These guys are playing really, really well, and he needs to allow some of these guys, like, to your point, I would say allow Pouliot to try and gel or not gel and then get demoted and bring someone else up, but take your time with it. This carousel that I'm seeing, I'm not into it. Nick, what's your thoughts on that?
I think it's damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario, especially with the media in Montreal and the Montreal Canadiens. If he would not have touched these lines whatsoever in these last few games, the media would have said, well, why isn't he helping things out? Why isn't he working on the power play? Why doesn't he shake things up? Well, now he's shaking things up, and we're still wondering why he's doing it. I just think that maybe he's doing some in-game adjustments, especially with the fact that for every game so far the Montreal Canadiens have won, they scored the first goal. For every game they've lost, they did not score the first goal, and the only exception there was the Tampa Bay game. And I think that they must realize this trend and are trying to do something to spark the offense.
All right.
Hope you enjoyed this episode 2 of Canadiens Coronary. We encourage you, we implore you, we ask you to subscribe to our show and write us a little note down there, or
right down below.
Send us an email at nick@thefranchise.ca or gary@thefranchise.ca. And we're taping live every episode at 5817 Boulevard Saint Laurent, our bar. It's not your bar.
It's not my bar.
It's our bar.
All right.
Bye.